Am I recording? I think I'm recording. So let me just get my headphones really quick. So before showing you the microphone, I want to do a little unboxing here and show you what comes in the package. So first of all, the microphone comes in this super handy carrying case. It's rugged and protects the microphone pretty well. So inside you find the C214 microphone along with its proprietary shock mount, and the shock mount also comes with an adapter. So on the bottom side there usually is the foam windscreen placed, which I do not have. And let's have a closer look at the microphone. The shock mount has this rotating knob and the microphone just fits right in there, and then you can close it shut and even mount it upside down, and the microphone is completely secure in the shock mount, which is super great. And then having a closer look at the microphone, it has two switches. One is a pad switch or attenuation switch, and the other one is a bass roll-off or high-pass filter switch. And now let's get into the actual review of the microphone and I can show you how it sounds. Okay, much better. The reason I have headphones on is because I want to directly monitor what's coming out of these two microphones. Reason for that is I want to compare these microphones, and in parts they are super similar and in other parts they are different. The first differentiator will be price. One is the cheap microphone and one is the more expensive microphone. So in terms of microphones, or in the microphone world, it's not really a super expensive microphone, but it leans more towards the higher end. So let's talk a little bit about these microphones and what I have here. This one is the AKG C214. I have to check it all the time. I'm messing up the name or the brand all the time. So this one is the C214, and this one is, let's say it comes in different names. You will find it as the CAD, I have to look it up every time, the CAD gxt 2200 or 2200, however you prefer to name it, or Thomann is selling it as their house brand, and the model T-Bone SC400 if I'm correct. But basically it's the same microphone every time, and the Capsule is a relatively inexpensive China brand. Capsule, the electronics in it are always the same. The housing is the same. Some are selling it as a black version, some are selling it as a silvery version. But it is more on the less expensive side. So depending on which model, which brand you're buying and where you're buying it, it might cost you somewhat from let's say $60 to $100 or $110. And this one also, depending on where you buy it, it might retail between $300 and $400. So if you find a good deal, you might actually get it for $300, which is a super good deal. So let's talk a little bit about what is similar and what is different with these microphones, except from the price, obviously. So they're both large diaphragm condenser microphone, and this one actually, for a cheap microphone, actually is a large diaphragm condenser microphone. Many of the cheap brands, they sell you a large diaphragm condenser microphone, but actually just the housing is large, but the diaphragm itself is a small diaphragm condenser. But obviously there are quality differences. One of them is for the AKG. The Capsule internally is shock mounted, so there is, I will just put it onto the screen. So they went quite some engineering into how the Capsule itself is mounted, and it is mounted on 4 different points, which are on elastic bands, minimizing shocks going straight to the capsule. So if I touch this microphone, you should barely hear it. Whereas if I touch this microphone, it will transfer straight into the microphone. So if I touch the housing, that will rumble. So if I touch this microphone, you will hear a sound, but it's not the vibration going into the capsule, but just the sound it makes by tapping it, and because it is so close, it will go into the microphone. That's a huge difference. Still, it is not a microphone that should be handheld. Other than that, this one comes with a relatively inexpensive shock mount. It just clamps onto the microphone, whereas the other one, I'm not sure if I can show you, but it has a rotating knob on the bottom, and you just slide the microphone in there and close it shut. Just touching the microphone every time. So, and you just close it shut. This means you can mount the microphone upside down without worrying that it will fall down. It's super tight. So that's in terms of build quality and mechanics, so to speak, of the microphones. In terms of sound, they are also drastically different. So let's just go over the specs. I looked up the specs for this one. I have to just check it. So this one is cardioid to super cardioid microphone. So it's not super clear what it is, but still, condenser microphone connects via XLR into your interface or your preamp. And let me check the noise. So they say it has a noise floor of 6.7 decibels, which I kind of doubt. So this one, they say they have 16 dBA, which is a lot more than this one. And this one is definitely not as quiet as this one. That I can tell. In terms of this frequency response, the AKG is on the bass side, it is relatively flat. And then it has a dip around 4K and around 10, 11, 12K. So it makes it, for voice, it has this little sparkle, so it pushes it a little bit. So the frequency response for this one, the regular use is not super smooth. So in the low end, it tapers off a little bit, has a little bit less bass than the AKG, and in the high end, there goes all sorts of ups and down in the curves and the frequency response, so it's not super smooth there as well. And the biggest dip in the high end actually is much higher. So whereas this one is in the 11-12K range, this one, the cheaper one, goes up at the 18-16 range, which makes it a little bit harsh in the bright tones and when you voice. So if you have a voice that is relatively sibilant, you would try to EQ this one out. Overall, when it comes to the frequency range, they both claim to capture sound from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz or 20K Hz. And I think as this tapers down and doesn't have that much bass response, it might capture it, but it's so attenuated already that I wouldn't count it. Let's talk about the switches and about attenuation. The China one, I have this microphone for quite some while now and didn't know it has a switch. So the switch actually is on the inside on the board, and you can attenuate the sound by, I think, 10 or 16 decibel. You have to open up and push the switch and close up your microphone again. So, and this one, the AKG C214 has the switches as you would expect on the outside. One is attenuation, and I think it's 20 dB, and the other one is a bass roll off. This one hasn't a bass roll off, but the AKG has a bass roll off, and it is a little bit, how would you say, uncommon to find a roll off that starts from 200 Hz, around 200 Hz. Or one low cut filter says 160. In the graph they show it goes from 200-ish around. But it tapers off really, really slowly with a smooth curve downwards. So it's not a super harsh cutoff as you would expect from a filter that is implemented by 80 Hz. So I'm not sure if it's going to be useful or not. Maybe it is to minimize proximity effect, maybe it's not. So this one, they both have proximity effect because they're cardioid. This one is supposed to be a super cardioid. This one is a regular cardioid microphone. And I am away like this much. So like, how much is this? 4 or 5 inches? I'm not sure. So let's get a little bit closer and hear how the AKG sounds when I'm super close. And I find this, the bass is still smooth, it's not overpowering, and you still have, because of the dip in the high end, you still have a super smooth sound. When I compare it to this one, it enhances the bass a little bit, but still, when you compare it, you don't have that much bass as with the AKG. Just compare it again. Here you have a much more bassy voice, a bassier voice, and a smoother voice as well. Whereas this one, you hear it, and depending on my S sounds, it can get quite harsh, and that is due to the relatively cheap Capsule. So now the thing is, it's quite unfair to compare a maximum $100 or $60 microphone to a $400 microphone. But then you have to think about what you are investing in, what you're using it for. So this one is a subtle microphone. It is built top notch, whereas this one is a cheap one. So the cheap one is around the range where you would invest a little bit, but not too much. And it definitely is usable, and I would definitely tend to use it on the closer side, because when you're getting away, it's not necessarily getting more pleasant. Whereas this one, it is super dry, and it gets even better when you get closer, and it's super smooth. So now comparing these two, you definitely have to consider what you might be using one or the other for. And I'm like to make a point here. Whereas you can find this microphone for like 60 to 100, most likely more around $100, and you can find good deals on this one for like $300. And then this is an investment. This one is on the side, like you want to invest a little bit, but not want to buy the cheapest one you can get. But when you consider what you use it for, if you're recording a podcast or a voiceover where sound is super important and people have to listen to you, do you want to hear the harsh sound, or do you want to hear the super smooth and buttery sound? So I think there it's super clear where the winner is, but also where you should invest, and that's your microphone. So definitely spend your money on the right places. And I have put the same cable, the same pop filter on these to have a good comparison, and I also put it in the same interface. They're also at the same level, and going into my Focusrite, and the preamps are around 6, and they're pretty much the same level. So you do not have to push your preamp, you do not need a super expensive preamp to power these. And yeah, considering this, you can get like $50, $70, $80, $100 interface, get a good microphone, and yeah, then you will have super smooth and super buttery sound, right? And yeah, that's it for today. I hope you can get something out of this video. The conclusion here, which one you will get, depends on your budget a little bit. For me, I have this one is on loan, and I'm already crying because I have to bring this one back. But I'm also looking to upgrade my microphone because I've been using the AKG for a while now and testing it out, and I like the sound of it. So I will do another video where I compare the AKG C214, yeah, said it right, to another microphone that is in the same price range, and that will be super interesting to see how a microphone in the same price range will be different from this one, because I'm going to look for an upgrade for this one. So stay tuned, see you in the next video.